Listen to me very carefully, because what happened on the night of May 23rd in the port of Novorossiysk is not just a military story. It is a story about preparation, coordination, precision, and the brutal arithmetic of what happens when a prepared force meets an unprepared one inside what was supposed to be a safe harbor. Ukrainian drones struck the Admiral Essen, a Project 11,356 frigate and active carrier of Kalibr cruise missiles, directly in the side near the deck while it sat in Russian-controlled Novorossiysk. At the same time, the Project 1239 small hovercraft missile ship was struck. And as if that were not enough, the Grushova oil depot and the Sheshkharis transshipment terminal, one of the largest oil storage complexes in all of southern Russia, with a capacity of 1.2 to 1.25 million cubic meters, were also struck in the same coordinated operation. One night, multiple high-value targets all hit simultaneously. The numbers do not lie, and the numbers of what was destroyed in a single evening over Novorossiysk tell a story that should permanently change how you think about power, preparation, and the cost of being caught sleeping. Before I go any further, I need you to subscribe to this channel right now and turn on every single notification. What I deliver here is the kind of geopolitical and military strategic analysis that private intelligence firms charge thousands of dollars per briefing to provide to people with serious money on the line. You are getting it here for free. The cost of admission is one click. Hit subscribe, drop a comment with the word Novorossiysk so I know who is paying attention, and share this with one person in your circle who needs to understand what is actually happening in this war and why it matters beyond the daily headlines. The people who understand the structural implications of what happened on May 23rd will be ahead of every consequence that follows. Everyone else will be reacting when they should have been positioned. Let me walk you through exactly what happened that night, because the operational detail is where the real intelligence lives, and most people never get past the headline. The strikes were carried out by the 9th Kairos Battalion of the 414th Unmanned Strike Aviation Brigade, operating under the Birds of Magyar Unmanned Systems Forces, in coordination with the 1st Center of the Unmanned Systems Forces and other deep strike units of Ukraine's Special Operations Forces. The commander of the Unmanned Systems Forces, Robert Magyar, published video of the strike directly on his Telegram channel. This was not an anonymous claim. This was a named commander attaching his name and his unit's name to video documentation of the operation. That is the level of confidence Ukraine's forces now have about what they achieved. The video shows a strike drone impacting the Admiral Essen directly in the side of the hull near the deck level. This was not a near miss. This was a confirmed direct hit on a warship that carries the Kalibr cruise missiles that SOCT Russia has been using to strike Ukrainian cities, power plants, hospitals, and civilian infrastructure throughout this war. The OSUM is a naval, short-range, surface-to-air missile system with a load of 20 missiles designed to protect the ship from exactly this kind of aerial threat. It failed. The drones came through. The ship was struck. The air defense system that was supposed to protect one of Russia's most capable surface combatants could not stop cheap Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles operating from beyond the borders of Russia's supposedly secure rear. That is not a tactical detail. That is a structural statement about the effectiveness of Russian air defense at protecting its own high-value naval assets, even when those assets are sitting in port, not actively maneuvering in a combat zone. In the same operation, the Grushova oil depot was struck. The Sheshkharis marine terminal, which sits directly on the coast and forms a single industrial complex with the Grushova depot, was struck. The total storage capacity of this combined facility is approximately 1.2 to 1.25 million cubic meters of oil and petroleum products, with 40 to 47 tanks currently operational. One night of coordinated drone strikes hit a Kalibr missile carrier, a rare hovercraft missile ship, and one of the largest oil transshipment complexes in southern Russia. If you still think this is just a military story that does not affect you, you have not been paying attention. I do not care about your feelings about this war. I care about what these numbers actually mean. So let me explain to you precisely why the Admiral Essen being struck matters beyond the images of fire and smoke. The Admiral Essen is a Project 11356 frigate, a modern Russian surface combatant designed to project naval power and strike land targets at long range. Its primary strategic weapon is the Kalibr cruise missile system. Kalibr missiles have a range of approximately 1,500 to 2,500 kilometers, depending on the variant. They fly at subsonic speed at very low altitude to evade radar, and they carry conventional warheads with high precision guidance systems. Russia has used Kalibr missiles launched from Black Sea ships to strike targets deep inside Ukraine on dozens of occasions throughout this war, hitting power infrastructure, civilian apartment buildings, industrial facilities, and military logistics hubs far from the front line. Every time Russia wanted to conduct a mass missile strike against Ukrainian cities and had ships available in the Black Sea, the Kalibr-equipped frigates and submarines were a central part of that strike package. Removing a Kalibr carrier from operational capability, even temporarily, while damage is assessed and repaired, reduces Russia's capacity to conduct exactly those kinds of mass missile attacks. The extent of the damage to the Admiral Essen is currently unknown, and I will not speculate about severity. But I will tell you this: a direct hit to the side of a warship near the deck level from an explosive-carrying drone is not cosmetic damage. Ships are complex systems of interconnected machinery, electronics, fuel systems, and weapon storage. Damage at the deck level near the hull can compromise propulsion, weapon systems, fire control systems, and crew safety simultaneously. The cost of building and maintaining a Project 11356 frigate runs into the hundreds of millions of dollars. The cost of the drones that struck it runs into the tens of thousands at most. That asymmetric cost equation, a cheap drone striking a $100 million warship, is the financial story that nobody is telling you clearly enough. Ukraine is conducting warfare at a cost-effectiveness ratio that makes every dollar Russia spent building its Black Sea fleet look like money thrown into a fire. The numbers do not lie, and those numbers favor Ukraine. Now let me talk about the Project 1239 small hovercraft missile ship, because this is the asset that most people are ignoring in favor of the more headline-friendly frigate. And ignoring it is a mistake. The Project 1239 Sivuch-class ships were developed by the Almaz Central Marine Design Bureau specifically to destroy large enemy vessels and provide protective cover for Russian formations and convoys in coastal areas and inland seas like the Black Sea. They are purpose-built, high-performance, lethal platforms. Here's what makes them strategically irreplaceable and why losing even one of them is a blow that cannot be quickly absorbed. In total, 16 ships of this class were planned for the Soviet Navy. The Soviet Union collapsed before most of them could be built. Only 2 were ever completed, the Bora and the Samum, and both of them ended up in Russia's Black Sea Fleet. 2. That is the entire global inventory of Project 1239 ships in existence, not 2 in the Black Sea, 2 in the entire world. These are not mass-produced patrol boats that can be replaced with a factory order. They are uniquely capable platforms with specifications that explain exactly why Russia built them and why losing one is a problem that cannot be solved quickly. The Samum has a full displacement of 1,000 tons, a length of 64 meters, and a beam of 17.2 meters. Its missile armament includes 2 4-cell launchers for Moscow supersonic anti-ship missiles, weapons that travel at approximately Mach 2.5 and are designed to destroy large warships. Its air defense armament includes the same OSAM system that failed to stop the Ukrainian drones that struck the Admiral Essen. The ship's most remarkable characteristic is its ability to transform between two completely different modes of operation. In catamaran mode, it achieves speeds up to 20 knots. When it activates its air cushion system, pumping air between its twin hulls to lift the platform, it achieves speeds up to 45 knots, making it one of the fastest combat vessels of its size in any navy in the world. Its range is 2,500 nautical miles at 12 knots or 800 miles at 45 knots, with endurance of up to 10 days and a crew of 68. This is a platform that took decades to design, years to build, and represents a category of naval capability that Russia simply cannot replace on any realistic timeline, given its current industrial constraints, sanctions, environments, and the demands the Ukraine war is already placing on every segment of its defense manufacturing base. Stop being a victim of incomplete information. The loss of access to even one of these ships, whether through destruction, serious damage, or the requirement to keep it in port for safety, represents a permanent reduction in a capability category that Russia cannot reconstitute quickly. Let me now show you the financial warfare dimension of what happened at Novorossiysk, because this is where I need you to understand that the Sheshkharis strikes are not a secondary story to the naval strikes. They are potentially the most consequential part of the entire operation for Russia's ability to continue funding its war. The Sheshkharis transshipment complex in Novorossiysk is not a minor fuel depot. It is one of the largest oil and petroleum transshipment facilities in all of southern Russia. Its total storage capacity is approximately 1.2 to 1.25 million cubic meters of oil and petroleum products. 40 to 47 tanks are currently in operation at this facility. The Grushova oil depot and the marine terminal on the coast form a single integrated industrial complex, meaning that damage to either component compromises the operational capacity of the entire system. Oil export revenue is the primary financial engine of Putin's ability to fund his war in Ukraine. Every barrel of oil that does not leave Novorossiysk because storage tanks are burning or terminal infrastructure is damaged is a barrel that does not generate revenue for the Russian federal budget. Every ruble that does not enter the Russian federal budget is a ruble that cannot be redirected to pay soldiers, buy ammunition, fund drone production, or support the military-industrial complex that keeps Putin's invasion operational. I have been saying this for months. Cash is trash when it is sitting in a burning oil tank. The Tuapse oil terminal has been struck multiple times in 2026. The Baltic Sea oil ports at Primorsk and Ust-Luga have been struck. And now Novorossiysk, one of Russia's most critical Black Sea export hubs, has been struck in a coordinated operation that hit both the naval assets and the energy infrastructure. In the same night, Ukraine is not just fighting a military war, it is conducting systematic financial warfare against Russia's ability to generate the revenue it needs to sustain its military operations, and it is doing it with asymmetric cost efficiency that should make every defense analyst in the world take notice. A drone that costs a few $100s strikes an oil tank that holds millions of dollars worth of petroleum products. The return on investment for Ukraine in these strikes is extraordinary. The financial damage to Russia compounds over time. This is not opinion. The numbers do not lie. Now, let me show you the strategic architecture that the Novorossiysk strike reveals. Because individual strikes are tactics, but the pattern they form is strategy. And the strategy emerging from Ukraine's 2026 campaign is one of the most sophisticated asymmetric military campaigns in modern history. What happened on May 23rd was not a random lucky hit. It was a coordinated, multi-target, simultaneously executed deep strike operation, involving multiple, specialized military units operating in precise coordination, the 9th Kairos Battalion, the 414th Unmanned Strike Aviation Brigade, the 1st Center of the Unmanned Systems Forces, and additional deep strike units from Special Operations Forces, all working together to hit naval assets, energy infrastructure, and port facilities in a single integrated operation. This is the pattern that has been emerging throughout 2026. Ukraine is no longer conducting isolated strikes against single targets. It is conducting coordinated campaigns against clusters of high-value targets simultaneously, overwhelming local air defenses through sheer volume and approach vectors, and ensuring that even if some drones are shot down, enough get through to achieve meaningful damage across multiple target sets at once. In March 2026, Ukraine launched more than 7,000 long-range drones in a single month, hitting over 70 military-industrial targets, including oil facilities and factories. The average deep strike range increased from 608 kilometers in March 2025 to 977 kilometers by April 2026. In the Mediterranean, Ukraine has been hunting Russia's Shadow fleet tankers from bases in Libya, striking ships more than 2,000 kilometers from Ukraine's borders. At Tuapse, repeated strikes over 16 days kept fires burning and refinery operations shut down. And now Novorossiysk, where in a single night Ukraine struck a Kalibr carrying frigate, a rare hovercraft missile ship, and a major oil transshipment complex simultaneously. Russia's air defense system cannot cover all of these targets all of the time. Its layered defense architecture was designed for concentrated protection of specific high-priority areas, not distributed protection across thousands of kilometers of coastline, port facilities, energy infrastructure, and naval anchorages. Every night that passes is another night that Ukraine can identify a gap in that coverage and send drones through it. You're broken, you don't even know it, is something I say about financial decisions, but it applies equally to Russia's strategic position right now. Russia is strategically insolvent, spending resources it cannot replace, losing assets it cannot rebuild, and watching its financial lifelines get systematically severed, one strike at a time. The Novorossiysk operation was not the beginning of this campaign. It is the latest chapter in a campaign that is progressively tightening around every dimension of Russia's ability to sustain this war. Are you going to be a winner or a loser? I am asking you that question directly because everything I just walked you through, the coordinated drone strike on a Kalibr missile carrier, the hit on one of only two Project 1239 hovercraft ships ever built, the burning of one of southern Russia's largest oil transshipment complexes. All of it has consequences that extend beyond the battlefield. Energy markets, geopolitical stability, Black Sea shipping lanes, and the balance of power in a theater that connects Europe, the Middle East, and Central Asia are all affected by what happened in Novorossiysk on the night of May 23rd. Winners study these events with analytical depth and position themselves correctly ahead of the consequences. Winners understand that what Ukraine achieved in a single night with drones that cost a fraction of the assets they destroyed is a permanent demonstration of how asymmetric warfare reshapes power. Losers watch the clip, feel something about it emotionally, and scroll to the next piece of content. I do not care about your feelings. I care about your understanding. Subscribe to this channel right now. Comment with what you think Russia does next to protect its remaining Black Sea Fleet assets. Share this with one person who needs the full picture, instead of just the headline. The window to understand what is happening before the consequences arrive is always shorter than people think.